This is Food Safety First with your host, Ryan Ramdas.
All right, welcome back to the Food Safety First podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ramdas. In today's podcast, we will be having a continuing discussion with our food material control. Part 2, I'm pleased and happy to welcome Jeff Wilson, the Vice President of Food Safety and Baking Operations for Europe, Asia, and Africa of AIB. Welcome back, Jeff.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for inviting me back.
Now, in part 1, we had an in-depth discussion of foreign material control, and I wanted to continue it and keep going because we are getting some great feedback so far, and I just want to jump in. So right off the jump, I guess let's go into it. Why is it important to have a foreign material control program?
Foreign material should not be present in our finished product. We strive in the food industry to have food which is free from any potential foreign bodies. If you don't have these devices in place, quite simply, there is a risk that a foreign material will enter the facility and become undetected and find its way into finished product. So devices need to be in place that are appropriate. We sometimes see devices that may not be appropriate to the actual product that's being produced. Some products at different temperatures, such as frozen products, react differently to a product which may be at ambient, very similar, but may react very differently through a metal detector, for example. And so having the equipment in place is one thing, but knowing how to set and calibrate that equipment is extremely important. Thankfully, though, we do see a very high level of understanding, and because quite often the equipment is tested by clients' facilities and the personnel who are out on the shop floor, they don't always understand the workings of a piece of equipment. And what we look for is that they understand, at least have a good basic knowledge of what the equipment can do. And especially if they're testing the equipment, then they have to demonstrate that they've been adequately trained. And we will test that when we go to do our inspections and audits. We will ask them to demonstrate the testing of the equipment. But more importantly as well is just to understand what happens when it goes wrong. What happens when you do find foreign material? If you find foreign material, is the product put on hold? Is the product recalled? Do you talk to your raw material supplier? Who does all of the root cause analysis to find out where this foreign body came from? So I guess for the equipment that's installed, I guess in summary, it has to be appropriate. It has to be installed with a level of training to make sure that equipment is operating to its full capability and capacity. And then people need to know what happens and what to do when it goes wrong.
Right. So it's really the customer, the manufacturer, your customer. They really have to be in tune, understand their entire process, straight from supply chain down to before shipping, to know all the risks and manage everything. That's the only way you can actually. That's the only way you can address foreign material, is to understand what's going on.
Yeah. The food safety program, the expectations that they will have mapped out all of their raw materials, all of the product flows, the processes, procedures, and what happens if they change a raw material, or if they source the same raw material from a different country. Is it the same? Does it still have the same risks and hazards? Does it have the same specification? Quite often we see this as sometimes a gap, and it's important that if somebody changes a raw material just by origin, it may present itself differently. It may have a different moisture content. It may have a different salt content. And all of these changes in a raw material in a season, could be the beginning of a season, the protein level of flour is different to the end of the season. And these all have an effect certainly on foreign material detectors, especially when we're thinking about metal detectors.
So is this one of the things that AIB does when they do an on-site assessment, take all the knowledge from previous customers' experience and kind of apply it to that application to help the customer understand what's going on?
Yeah, it's two ways really. We have an expectation that the client has has worked with their supplier. And if we take foreign material devices, our expectation is that they've got a good understanding, a good training, and that they've shared their training with, say, their engineering team and their quality team. So they've got quality personnel who are undertaking calibration tests on the metal detectors, for example. We're looking for a good knowledge base that they can, when challenged by AIB, we will always ask them, help me understand how this works. Because, first of all, even though the principles are pretty similar around the world, there's many different foreign material devices. So our expectation is that the client can explain to us how it works, and the type of challenges that then we would ask would be, as I mentioned before, what happens if a test piece is not detected? Or what happens if the metal detector does kick out a product? What is your procedure then to hold or recall? So our job is to ensure that the clients have done, if you like, their homework when working with their suppliers, but then we wouldn't stop at that stage. So if we do find gaps, quite often we do, we would then say, we probably, the reason why this happened was because of X. And have you thought about talking to your supplier about making this particular change? Or we quite often see very nice equipment throughout the world, and then either side of the equipment can be unrelated equipment that can interfere with those devices. So quite often conveyor belts, radio signals can interfere with metal detectors. And
Right.
it's that knowledge that sometimes people buy the best piece of kit and then they have problems and they say it doesn't work. It's not working down to the sensitivity that we were promised. And when you look either side of it, you say, well, this is why. You've got something that's kicking out a signal over there, so the metal detector doesn't know what it is it's meant to be hearing, and you've got somebody on a radio mic that keeps clicking it on and off. And knowing this is where we kind of pride ourselves of saying there may be some other things happening. It's not the equipment itself. You've got some other outside interference. And that's another part of the AIB knowledge that we pride ourselves in saying, we'll try and bring a solution. We don't know all of the answers, but we certainly work with people who do. Yeah, we'll point people in the right direction. And generally we find as we go back that they have solved that problem. And even if we are helping them during that problem solving process, it doesn't stop. So when we do our audits and inspections, we don't just walk away. If there is a problem that we can help them with, and as I said before, we'll try and put them in contact with maybe even a similar type of facility that may even be competitors. We will say, well, we work with some similar organizations. Talk to these guys and see if they can help.
Now, I know you're wearing an auditor's hat, but do you find customers are really receptive to these suggestions, or you get resistance?
No, generally receptive, because that's what we set out to do is trying to equip clients with knowledge. And I think all of us, I always liken it to taking your car in to have a service, and the mechanic lifts up the bonnet and says, "No, there's nothing I can do." And you think, well, hang on, you're the expert, so at least point me in the right direction. And sometimes we do see things that we say we don't have all of the answers, but please allow us to introduce you to somebody who may be able to help. And we worked with many people around the world. We've seen pretty much everything you can see. I mean, for example, we do somewhere around about 20,000 audit days a year with
Wow.
AIB International globally. So we get to see facilities who are challenged because of their location, trying to do the best they can with the best equipment they can source. And we're able to at least provide them with the knowledge that, or the contacts that will just help them either install their equipment correctly, or you just have somebody at the end of the phone they can call to say, we've not solved this problem. Or when you get the phone call to say, actually this is working now. And we've also talked before about food safety culture, and that's part of the whole AIB mission, is to try and provide the trust to our clients, and they trust us to call them when something goes wrong.
How frequently are you auditing a customer?
Typically twice a year. There are, again, different programs depending on the audits that we're undertaking, but typically twice. Some clients it's 4 times a year, and part of that is the support, because even though sometimes people think about audits and they're not something somebody wants every day. So our approach is when we're at your facility, use our knowledge, and we might be there 2, 3, or even 4 or 5 days, depends on the size of the facility. And one of the most important things is that not just that we are there to inspect and audit, but we actively tell the client, please get as much information out of our food safety professionals as you can while you've got them on site. So to that point, sometimes, as I say, we are in facilities 4 times a year, but typically twice a year.
Okay, and that's from an AIB. Now, if I'm a customer and I'm wearing my customer hat and I say to you, how often should I audit myself? How often should I inspect my equipment and audit my processes? I'm sure that's a question that you're asked a lot, but I'm curious what the answer is.
It is. The absolute bare minimum we recommend is the whole facility is inspected within 1 month, and that's a deep dive inspection of every single production line, outside grounds, storage, roof, if it's safe to go on, silos. It's really important to have that food safety inspection program set up naturally. It shouldn't be something that is done as an addition. It should be something that's built in as part of everyday food safety culture. We've used this term a few times now. Typically, what we see clients doing and where it works really well is, Ryan, you couldn't go and inspect the facility on your own every month. One, you probably get a little bit blind
A little bit, yeah.
to seeing things. So what we actively support are food safety teams. So clients typically break it down into multidisciplinary inspections. And the reason we talk about multidisciplinary, because quite often people working within their own area will become blind to things. I mean, how many times we walk around our own home and say, yeah, I'll pick that up tomorrow. And then you walk past next week and, oh, I didn't pick that up. Quite often having people from different departments inspecting somebody else's department is far more beneficial. So we encourage these teams to be made up from all departments. So we got finance, we might have engineers, we got obviously quality, and this means that you can spread the knowledge, and also it means that you can do that deep inspection. You can achieve it within 1 month. And typical programs, we see they're broken down into 1 week. So 1 week they'll divide the facility into 4. Within 1 week they'll do 1 quarter, and it's very effective. What we see, clients that can stick to that type of inspection, not only do they score very well on their audits, but it's natural. It's something that they just naturally do, and also promoting that awareness. So if I find a problem, I'm congratulated for it. I'm not penalized. And that's when you build this food safety inspection program. Clients that try to do it alone, or 1 or 2 people, generally struggle. It has to be all departments working together. And I think I mentioned before that nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something. When you break it down like that, if I'm the guy who's just sweeping the floors or cleaning out the raw material areas, if I know what I'm looking for, I'm going to bring some knowledge, some food safety knowledge. And that could be, I've just seen a delivery and there are some potential foreign bodies on the outside of pallet, and I know who to report it to and why. And that's how to do a food safety inspection. And that's how to, when we talk about minimizing foreign bodies as well, it's everybody having knowledge of what foreign bodies might be in their facility.
Well, Jeff, I really appreciate this because I find it very insightful, because it's more than just an inspection system. It's a customer knowing their entire process, knowing everything upstream, in process, downstream, recalls. It really is a program, and I do appreciate you coming, sharing your time, sharing your insight on this. And I look forward to AIB continuing to educate people throughout the world.
Thank you, Ryan. You're very welcome.
If any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to us at foodsafetyfirst@fortresstechnology.com. Again, that's foodsafetyfirst@fortresstechnology.com. Thanks, Jeff. Talk to you next time.
Thanks, Ryan.